Hey, seventh grade. Thought I would walk through the ungraded practice tables that you received yesterday. I know that's not for a grade, but I also know that some of you will want to practice this for your next quiz. So I'm going to walk through the whole process and hopefully you find this useful. So looking at table 1, a baker uses 2 cups of milk for every 3 cups of flour. So we're going to find our equations to help us solve this. Let's see, I am going to highlight the rows that we are looking at. So we're going to focus on the whole numbers to help us find our equation. So we notice that x has a value of 2 when y has a value of 3 and z has a value of 5 because x plus y is equal to z. So the 2, 3, and 5 are the only 3 numbers that are going to be in our equations. So we're going to start with x. We're going to say that x is equal to and x is equal to, because we're going to have an equation where the x is related to the y and where the x is related to the z. So that'll cover all of our possible options. So when we're looking at x and y, we can see that x is 2 and y is 3. So that is why x is 2 over 3, or 2/3 of the value of y, because 2 is 2/3 of 3. And then we're seeing that x is 2 and z is 5. So x is 2/5 the value of z. So whenever we have a y or a z value, means we can find the x value. I'm going to switch colors for the next equations. We're going to go on to y. So y equals and y equals. We can see that y equals 3 and x equals 2, which means that y is 3 over 2 x, y equals 3, z equals 5, so y equals 3 over 5 z. Because y is 3/5 of the value of z and 1 1/2, or 3 over 2, the value of x. Last set of equations, we're going to go to z. So z equals and z equals. We see that z is 5 and x is 2. So that means z is 2.5, or 5 over 2 times x. And z is 5 and y is 3. So z is 5/3 the value of y. So using these 6 equations, we're going to be able to find every single value. Okay, so we're going to look at the top row first. We see that x is equal to 1 and 1/2. And we need to find y and z. So the 2 equations that we're going to be able to use are here, because we can multiply 3 over 2 times x in order to get y, and here, because we can multiply 5 over 2 times x to get z. So we're going to do that. Excuse me. So y equals 3 over 2 times x, and x is 1 and 1/2, which we're going to change that to an improper fraction of 3 over 2. That equals 9/4. And we know that 9 over 4 goes into 9 2 times. So that's our whole number, and there is 1 left over. So our cups of flour will be, let's make this red, 2 and 1/4. Need to erase this and go to z. So now we see that z is equal to 5 over 2x. Right, that's our formula here. So 5 over 2 times 1 and 1/2, which is the same as 3 over 2. That's going to equal 15 over 4. We know 4 can go into 15 3 whole times, and there are 3 left over. So we have a total of 3 3/4. I'm going to type that here, 3 3/4. And we are done with the top row. All right, let's erase our work. So we're looking at the third row now, where y is equal to 4 1/3. So we have the y value. We're looking for the x and the z value. So this time we're going to be looking at the equations here and here, because we can find the x and the z value by multiplying a number by y. So for the x value, it says x equals 2/3 of y. So we're going to be doing 2/3 times y, which is 4 1/3. We know that that is the same as 13/3, which is equal to 26 over 9. And that would simplify to 2 8/9. So we have 2 8/9. Better shrink that a little bit. Oops. Okay. Moving on to the z value, and remember, now that you have the x value, you could use different equations, or you could add up the x and the y. But we're going to continue with our plan and use the equation z equals 5/3 times y. In this case, so 5/3, and our y is again 13 over 3, which is going to equal 65 over 9. We know that 9 goes into 65 7 whole times, and then we'll leave with 2 left over. So 7 2/9. I'm going to put that here, 7 2/9. And if we added up the x and the y value, 2 8/9 plus 4 1/3, it would equal 7 2/9. All right. On to row 4. It tells us the total cups is 9. So they give us the z value. We need to find the x and the y value. So we are going to use this formula and this formula to find x and y, because we multiply a number by z to get those totals. So for the x value, 2/5 times 9, that's equal to 18 over 5. 5 goes into 18 3 times, and there are 3 left over. That gives us a value of 3 3/5. 3 3/5. And for the y value, it says y equals 3/5 of z. So we're multiplying 3/5 times 9. It's going to equal 27 over 5. 5 goes into 27 5 times. There's 2 left over. We have 5 2/5. Hopefully, you can see that 3 3/5 plus 5 2/5 is equal to 9. So that's a nice way to check that our math is correct. 2 more rows for this problem. If you're feeling very confident that you can do this on your own now, you can maybe skip to the end and see if you got all the correct answers. Otherwise, you're in for a long video. Okay, we have a y value of 8 1/2. So we're going to be using the equations where we know the value of y. So x is equal to 2/3 times y, and z is equal to 5/3 times y. So those are the equations we're going to use. So for x, we have 2/3 times 8 1/2, which we know converts to 17/2. That's going to equal 34/6, which simplifies to 17/3. We know that 3 goes into 17 5 whole times. There are 2 left over. So we know the x value is, hopefully, there we go. The x value is 5 2/3. Then we're multiplying 5/3 times 8 1/2 to get the z value. So 5/3 times 17/2, that's going to equal 85/6. We can see that 6 times 14 is 84. So there's 14 holes and 1/6 left over. So that gives us a grand total of 14 1/6. We see that our basic multiplication and math facts come in very useful too. Last row, we have 7 2/3 as the x value. So we know the x value. We're trying to find the y and the z. So we're going to use this and this equation. So our red equation says y equals 3/2 times x. So we're going to do 3/2 times x, which is 7 2/3. We know that simplifies to 23/3. It's going to equal 69/6. We can divide both of those by 3, of course. You get 23/2, which equals 11.5. So y is 11.5. Okay, last step for this problem. We're trying to find the z value. We can see that z is equal to 5/2 times x. So we're taking 5/2, multiplying by x, which we know is 23/3, because 7 2/3 simplifies to 23/3. That is going to get us 115/6. 6 times 19 will get us 114. So we 19 holes and 1 left over. Come on. Let's try to type this last problem. There we go. So that was 19 1/4. So now you have filled out the entire table and you're good to go. So I'm going to scroll down to number 2. I'm going to write out the 6 equations and then let you work in peace because it's a long video. Okay. So we're back to writing the equations. Writing the equations before you start is a nice way to get things going. So we're going to focus on the 5, the 3, if I can get the highlight. 5, 3, and 8, because those are the whole numbers. So for all of our equations, we are going to be using 5, 3, and 8. And we're going to have 2 equations for each variable. So we'll start with x, then we'll go to y, and we'll go to z. Okay, we see that x has a value of 5 and y has a value of 3, which means that x is 5/3 the value of y, because 5 is 5/3 of 3. We see that x has a value of 5, z has a total of 8, so x is equal to 5/8 of z. Moving on to y has a value of 3, x has a value of 5, so y is 3/5 of x. Y has a value of 3, z has a value of 8, so y is 3/8 of z. Z has a value of 8, x has a value of 5, so z is 8/5 of x. Z has a value of 8, y has a value of 3, so z is 8/3 the value of y. From here, now that you have those formulas, you can multiply any value to find your remaining x, y, or z. Hope this video helped.